seats. We thank God for Superintendent Jay Gooding, our Civic coordinator. And at this time, we are giving it into his hands that he may go as the Lord is giving him. God bless you, sir.
That would have been good if I said that was a hand clap for me, but I said, can we give the Lord a hand clap? We're grateful tonight. Certainly we honor our bishop. Let's give our bishop a hand clap. Bishop James Pulling, our prelate, to our and his cabinet, to our mother Harris in her absence and her cabinet. Let's give her a hand clap. And certainly to the fragrance of the house, Lady Pullings. Let's give, I call her Queen Esther. Let's give her a hand clap tonight. I want to thank Bishop for allowing us to hold this. I believe this might be the first time in our Eastern New York history that we've had a fireside chat. And we're grateful because we have two of our public officials here, our high-ranking city officials that are with us on tonight. Let's give them a hand clap. The Honorable Darcel Clark, our Madam Bronx District Attorney, and our newly appointed and promoted Deputy Commissioner of Community Affairs Bureau, Alden Foster. It's important that we have community conversation. So as a church, we believe strong communities are built through dialogue, understanding, and partnership. As we recently celebrated Black History Month, and this month is Women's History Month. So tonight, we give a good Church of God in Christ welcome to two of our highest ranking Black public officials in law enforcement in New York City. Again, let's give them a hand clap. The Honorable Madam Bronx District Attorney Darcel Clark, and our recently promoted to Deputy Commissioner of Community Affairs Bureau for the New York City Police Department, Alden Foster. Y'all can give it up. The Honorable Darcel Clark is the 13th District Attorney of Bronx County, serving since January 1st, 2016. And as we celebrate Women's History Month, she made history as the first woman to hold that position in Bronx County and the first African-American woman elected as District Attorney in New York State. And let me just say that both of them are from the Bronx. So we're in Brooklyn tonight, but she was born and raised in Bronx Soundview houses. She began her legal career in the Bronx District Attorney's Office in 1986, where she prosecuted violent crimes, narcotic cases, and homicides. She later served more than 16 years as a judge, including roles on the New York City Criminal Court, the New York State Supreme Court in the Bronx, and the Appellate Division, First Department. She earned her bachelor's degree in political science from Boston College and a Juris Doctorate from Howard University School of Law. As district attorney, she has focused on criminal justice reform, victim support services, community outreach, and initiatives aimed at preventing wrongful convictions and reducing incarceration through alternative programs. Commissioner Foster is the Deputy Commissioner of Community Affairs Bureau for the New York City Police Department, where he leads citywide efforts to strengthen relationships between the police and communities they serve. In this role, he oversees community outreach, youth engagement initiatives, crime prevention programs, and partnerships with civic, faith, and neighborhood organizations across New York City. He began his connection with NYPD as a youth participant and intern, experience that inspired his career in public service. Before becoming Deputy Commissioner, he held several leadership roles within the Community Affairs Bureau, focused on youth services and community engagement, working to create programs and opportunities that connect young people and neighborhoods with the police department. So again, let's give them a hand clap. And so we thank God for this fireside chat. Usually a fireside chat is with one person, but tonight I'm grateful to have two of our leaders here, so I'm going to switch back and forth. I'll start with you first, Madam DA. What inspired you to pursue the career of public safety and criminal justice?
Well, first of all, I want to thank you, Pastor Gooding, for having me here, and the host of this church, and Bishop as well. It's an honor to be here. I got my passport stamped into Brooklyn, so I'm all right. ICE won't be coming to get me or anything like that. I got papers, so I'm good. But no, I'm happy to be here. Thank you for that question. You know, it's just a lot of things. I guess growing up in public housing and, you know, seeing what I've seen, being a product of the New York City public school system, and just being a daughter of the Bronx is something that has just been in me, so that whatever I decided to become, it was going to be because of where I came from. You know, as a kid, I always loved school, right? And, you know, my father worked for NYCHA, so the same housing project we lived in, he worked there, so I knew about living and working in the same community. My mother was a community activist before that became a fancy term. Anytime something happened, everybody said, go see Ms. Clark. So I knew about helping community and problem solving. And I, as a child, was always in school arguing for people, standing up for people, you know, just, you know, those who couldn't speak for themselves. And it's like, I got to figure out something where I could use this. Because every time the report card went home, it was like, oh, straight A's. But in the back, it always say she talked too much. She always talking, you know, so it's like, what am I going to do with that? And lo and behold, I found my niche. I like social studies or things like that. But what really turned me to this, to be a criminal lawyer and hopefully a judge and now DA, is that on my way to school one day, I went to Truman High School in Co-op City, so I had to travel to school. And a bunch of us were on a city bus, you know, horsing around as kids do. And we found a bag on the seat, and inside were bus transfers. Now, those of you that know about that, when we used to get on the bus, when you switch to the next one, they give you a piece of paper so you go to the next. So we opened the bag, and it was the bus driver's bag. We knew it, right? So we're playing around, handing out transfers to each other, joking around. He got very angry and got into an argument with one of my friends who was a basketball player at the school. And lo and behold, before it was over, the bus driver stabbed my friend in the chest. So there I am, a 10th grader, seeing a friend of mine stabbed. I became a witness to that. I ended up going to the Bronx DA's office to be a witness in the grand jury. So an assistant DA prepared me to go there, testify before the grand jury, and it came back no true bill, meaning that the bus driver was not held accountable. And from that day, I said, I got to do something to make sure that victims of crime never see or feel the same things that I saw. And that's what led me to college, law school, and then my first job ended up being in the Bronx DA's office. And now I'm running the place. So that's my story.
Let me just give you a follow-up question to that. What keeps you committed to this work?
Well, first of all, you know, I am a woman of faith, and, you know, I want to give greetings from Thessalonia Worship Center in the Bronx. But you know what? You have to have something to hold on to do this work, because it is very challenging. I'm thankful for you, my friend, because I know that those prayers go up all the time from Pastor G. We work so closely together in the community. And you know what? To me, this work is just personal, right? It's not just being the DA, it's being a citizen and a member of the Bronx community. When my neighbors hear gunshots, I hear them too. So they know that I understand it. There's not a neighborhood, block, building in that county that doesn't know me because they've seen me out there, or they see me on TV and say, wow, you're a lot shorter than you look on TV or whatever. But they see me and they know me in the work that we're doing. And when I can help somebody like that, when they recognize me, know that they could trust me to keep them safe, then that's what keeps me grounded to do. It keeps me up at night, keeps me on my knees all day, but it's something that, you know, it's a labor of love that is personal, and I would never, and I don't want to give that up.
And I can attest to that. Let's give her a hand clap. I can attest to that, because many times in the midnight hour, Madam Clark, Bronx Borough President Gibson, myself are on the phone trying to talk about situations that we can calm where communities have been affected by violence in the communities. Commissioner Foster, what inspired you to choose a career in public safety and community engagement?
Pastor G, I just want to say thank you to you for being a friend, a mentor, and someone I call on a lot with community issues. Bishop Pullins, thank you so much for your friendship as well. My mentor, Darcel Clark, the Bronx DA, my DA, because I live in the Bronx, doing such a great job. I'm from Brooklyn, all right, so I got my Brooklyn stamp here. I'm from Walt Whitman houses, not too far from here. I grew up in public housing. I moved to the Bronx when I was 8 years old. I grew up in the late 80s, and I got to see in Brooklyn North, this area, it really didn't look like what public safety looks like today. Crime was very high. Crack epidemic was booming at that time. I saw a lot of my friends get arrested. Many of them got killed. And it really made me want to get involved with public safety. The only representative government that I seen in my community at that time was the police. And back then, again, police not always got it right. And I always wanted to be a part of some kind of change. And I said, if I ever had the chance, I would make it right. And I didn't know right away I was going to go into community affairs. But after a couple of years of being in the NYPD, I realized the biggest impact that I can make on people, clergy, community, was the NYPD Community Affairs Bureau. So I've been fortunate enough to hold all of the civilian executive ranks in the Community Affairs Bureau and working on ways to better connect with communities around the city. And again, being from the community, still living in the community, it gives me that insight. And just like DA Clark said, it's personal work for me too, because I still have family that live in public housing. So I understand the struggle and how real that is.
Thank you. Commissioner, for those who may not be familiar with your role, can you share what the Community Affairs Bureau does and why it is such an important part of the work of the NYPD?
So the Community Affairs Bureau is the offices I like to call the sky blue uniform that you see. And those are the officers that go out every day and really engage the community. They engage clergy, they engage schools, young people. And my goal is, and my mission is really to make sure that we're connecting and listening to people and solving problems. And there's also the community affairs officers that normally have the personal relationships with external partners and helping connect them to the police department.
Madam Clark, can you briefly explain the role of your office and how it impacts everyday families?
All right, so the district attorney today in the 21st century is not the district attorney that many people think we are. In the past, it was all about just prosecuting people, working with the police, making sure people got arrested and locked up and put away for the rest of their lives. You know, this is my 40th year in as a lawyer. I know I don't look like, I started when I was 2. I started when I was 2 years old. Okay. In any event, so this is my 40th year. And you know, when I started out the DA's office as an assistant DA, I mean, I have 500 of lawyers now who are assistant DAs, but I was one of those young lawyers back in 1986. And back then it was nail them and jail them. The cops arrested everybody. And our mission in the office was, if it was in the penal law and you could write it up and prosecute them. And so many people ended up in jail waiting for their trials to happen, pre-trial or convicted. And what that led to eventually was mass incarceration. But back then, that's what we thought public safety was. That's what we thought, that's how we kept our communities safe. And what it did, it decimated so many communities. So, you know, I knew about that. And now, having been an assistant DA, having been on the bench for 16 years, presiding over these same cases, and now 10 years as the DA, I know, you know, better than that that's not what the DA is all about. Oh, and by the way, I need to mention the fact that I'm also married to a member of NYPD, recently retired after 40 years with NYPD. So I know the real law and order in my house. I don't have to watch it on TV. But really, so the prosecutor now is not nail him and jail him. And I like to think of it this way. It's prevention, it's intervention, it's prosecution, and it's reentry. The DA does all of that. We are the gatekeepers. So prevention is all about being out in communities, letting people know how they could be safe, what they can do, educating people, making sure that I ask for resources for the community, because when we deal with the root causes of crime and those are solved, then that's less than I have to do. Just this afternoon, I had to testify before the city council because it's budget season now, asking for resources for my office. And what normally I'll ask for money for my office, but what I do more is ask for resources for the Bronx community. Because if they can do everything that they can to give jobs and health services and housing, to people, those are the root causes of crime. When people don't have those, they end up going into, crime. So the job is prevention. The job is intervention. People are going to come into the criminal justice system. Not every single person that does is a criminal or supposed to go to jail for the rest of their life. So you got to have somebody like a DA who understands that intervention is part of it. Okay, yes, they've come in, but what is justice going to look like in this particular case? Does it mean that they need mental health services, substance use, because of addiction, jobs, homelessness, school, whatever it is? Let's see who this person is and what they need in order to get them back on the right track. Then the job is prosecution. And that's what everybody knows traditionally for us to be. And I'm going to tell you right now, I'm unapologetic about being the DA. I believe that people need to be prosecuted for things when they bring harm to our community. People have to be held accountable. But what that accountability looks like is different for every single individual. So when they come through my office, it's not about the crime, because it's always going to be the worst crime ever. I know that. What we need to do is look at who is this person, how did they get here, and what is justice going to look like in this particular case for that individual, for the victim of the crime, and for the community. So that we do as well. And lastly is reentry. People are going to be held accountable, and they're going to go away to jail, or they're going to go away to prison, and they're going to get out, and they have to go somewhere, and they're going to go back home where they came from. And I want people to go in one way and come out better. And to make sure of that, the DA's office is involved in the reentry services to make sure that we try to get them on the right track so they don't reoffend. So I hold these employment fairs, reentry fairs, to get people on their feet. I can't tell you how many of them we've had where people have come up to me and said, I just finished 20 years. You're the DA, and I can't believe you're holding this. I just picked out a suit that was donated. There's an employer over here interviewing me. Maybe I could get a job. Thank you. That's my job too. So it's not only putting them away, but making sure that when they come back that they're stable. So that's what I do, and that's what the job is all about.
Y'all can give a hand clap. I hear hand claps sporadically. Well, you answered my next question, because I was going to ask you, how do you make decisions that balances accountability, fairness, and public safety? But you answered that. So I'll go to Commissioner Foster. Churches have historically been anchors in our communities. In your opinion, what roles can houses of worship play in supporting safer neighborhoods and stronger relationships with NYPD?
So clergy is very important to the New York City Police Department. I like to say public safety is a shared responsibility, and there's no one else in the community, in my opinion, that knows the community better than clergy, right? The folks the young people that come into your church every Sunday, that is very important to me. One of my main missions in this role is going to make sure that the clergy around the city have a strong relationship with the New York City Police Department, their local commands, and make sure that community affairs officers is constantly engaging and checking up on clergy around the city, because it is the backbone of what we do in public safety.
And let me just add to that, it's important for our pastors. If your precinct don't have a clergy council, one of the things we initiated in the Bronx is trying to get every precinct with a clergy council. I implore every pastor, elders, find out where your precinct is, make sure you know your commanding officers, your community affairs officers, and start a clergy council if they don't have one. Y'all can give it up. Y'all can give it up for me too.
Yeah. No, you have to give it up to him, because so many times community people reach out to me and say, what do we do? It's like, look to the church, look to the houses of worship, because you see everybody at their best and at their worst, just like me. And unfortunately, many of you, we talk about first responders on our end. Pastor Gooden is at a funeral every time I turn around. That's the last responders.
Got 5 between Friday and
last
Saturday.
responders turn out to be in houses of worship. So community better than anybody else. And I implore you, not only for the clergy councils, but just be there for the community. Open your doors, provide opportunities. I was in Louisville, Kentucky a couple of weeks ago, and I met with a member of the clergy there that's working with the DA there. And he was asking the same thing. What can the churches do to help you as DAs? I said, to be there. You don't know how important the food insecurity and the fact that you all have pantries, or, that food you be cooking and stuff, that makes a big difference in a family's life. Because if it wasn't for school, for some kids that don't get the meals there, and you in the church that provide pantry services or food inside, some folks might not eat. And it makes the difference between whether or not they might commit a crime because they hungry or they angry, and being able to be full. I remember we did a workshop one time, and some kids were there, and, we were giving out food. It was a community town hall. And they were giving out food, and some of the kids came over, and the people that were giving out said, no, you already had some. I was like, give them children their food. Yeah. What are we going to do with it? If he wants it, give it to him. And then some of them went to the side and said, oh, it feels so good to be full. That brought tears to my eyes. But we had them inside in a safe place, and they had food. And guess what? They weren't getting shot, and they weren't getting in trouble at the time. So I would ask you to continue to keep your doors open. Be careful now. We do got to have security, because there's people out here that's harming folks in the church too. So, and you got members of your congregations that are all law enforcement or whatever. Get them involved in making sure that the church is safe, but be there for the community.
And Pastor G, I just want to add on to what the DA said. The clergy is also an asset and a resource to the NYPD officers.
Yes.
The cops see things every single day that's not normal. This work is not normal. And, Bishop, today you send me a text, and that text gets people through. And that connection, Pastor G, what you do, you go to roll calls, you pray for the cops, that helps the men and women that do this work every day go on every single day. So thank you for that.
Yes, that's right. That's right.
Madam Clark, as the church, we care deeply about healing, prevention, and restoration. From your perspective, what are some of the misconceptions that people have about the DA's office?
First of all, everybody think that I make the laws, right? I'm law enforcement. Somebody passes those laws, and then I have to enforce them. So that's the first thing. So when this criminal justice reform happened and all those laws changed, they going out blaming the DA for changing the bail, for right? It's my fault that, people are out because you let them out or whatever. No. The law says certain crimes no longer are eligible for bail. You got the judiciary that has their role. Look, I know that because I did that for 16 years. Some things judges do, other things lawmakers do. They're the ones that pass it. I have to enforce it. When those is now 6 years now that those criminal justice reform laws came. But when they changed, I went out to the community to try to explain to them what it meant and what it was going to look like. And they were so angry at me thinking I was the one that did it. And it's like, no, I have to follow it. So when somebody gets out and no bail is set, it's not me deciding that they should be out or in. It's the law that was created. It's a judge that hears both sides and make the determination on whether or not somebody should be in and somebody should be out if it's bail eligible. So I think the biggest misconception is people think that I write the law, and I do not write. Because if I wrote the laws, they'd be written, they would be a lot better. No, but no offense. Look, some of my, closest friends and allies are lawmakers. They all work to do the right thing. They mean well. but sometimes everybody has to see things from a different perspective. And I just appreciate that some of them reach out to me before they decide to write the law or before they look to pass it, to say, well, what impact do you think this is going to have on, community, etc. So I'm glad to be able to have some input, but at the end of the day, I'm not the one that makes the law.
And I'm glad she said that, because I've sat in some of the community council meetings and had to have her back when this law first was passed, because a lot of folk had that misconception that the DA's office was the ones that was letting them the no bail get out of free jail card. Commissioner, many of us are deeply concerned about the future of our young people. Recently, even in the Bronx at the Bay Plaza, they had the teen takeover. And I know that's been happening throughout the city. What programs or initiatives do NYPD have to connect officers with our youth in a positive and constructive way?
That's a great question. So in the NYPD, we run a number of different youth programs. And on the local level, your local community affairs officer is probably running some kind of program for young people. At the Community Affairs Bureau on the higher level, we run our NYPD Explorers program. I'm sure many of you heard about that program. That's for young people 14 to 20 years old. We have about 1,500 kids citywide, all of our 78 police precincts, our 9 housing commands, and the 12 transit districts all have what we call Explore Pulse, totally free program for young people, provides mentorship, and really just gets them engaged with the police department, but also other opportunities. Coming up, we have a great partnership with the Department of Youth and Community Development for young people 14 to 24 years of age. The NYPD last summer, we hired over 1,200 kids to work in the police department from the police commissioner's office down. This summer, we're looking to up that number to about 1,300. So that's creating a work site for young people. And then also we have, for young people 10 to 15 years old, we're having, again, our Summer Youth Police Academy that we partner with the Department of Education. Around the city, we work 5 boroughs. We have a free camp for young people to be able to come from 8 a.m. to about 3 p.m. So all these different programs, and also working with external partners, right, as the DA's office, a community-based organization, and just making sure that we're working together to try to keep young people busy and out of trouble.
I want to talk a little bit about that teen takeover, because, that was that winter break that they had. And, we as a city, the Department of Education and all of us need to realize that that was a week that kids were out and they don't have nothing to do. So we need to figure it out. Like, that should have been anticipated. Not that they would go crazy, but I believe it or not, in Bay Plaza, when that happened, I was out there. I'm always out there right in the middle of it, right? I'm there ordering food, waiting to pick up my food, and I see these young kids, and these were young kids. These were like junior high school kids. This wasn't no teenagers or grown people. These were young kids with their phones, you know how they are, TikTok and everything else. And they just simply, the school was out. So what were they to do? Parents are probably working or whatever. That happened then, and then they do, social media is the thing that really, like, we need to get a handle on. So, like, if we could hold accountable some of these social media sites that allow these things to be perpetuated to our young people, maybe we could start there where it can't disseminate so much. But be that as it may, in about 3 weeks, it's going to be another break, right? It's Easter, Passover, everything else. We as a city, we as community need to figure out what you're going to do with your child. What do you think they're going to do while they're out that week? We need to plan something together. We always anticipate this. We did this one time, Pastor Gooden, when George Floyd was killed, and police officer Shervin was on trial, and they were waiting for that verdict. We knew that if that verdict wasn't what it was, there could have been chaos, riots and everything. We already know that, right? So instead of waiting to see what happened, the borough president, the police department, the clergy, we all got together and started figuring out sites where people could go so that they could be safe, they could pray, that we could wait for that verdict and, pray and hope for the best. So this is something that we can anticipate, this Easter break coming up. We need to get our heads together now to figure out What are you going to do with your child or your grandchild? Or as a community, can we open up the doors to give them something to do so that they don't do those teen takeovers?
And I don't know if y'all saw it on the news or not, but as Commissioner Foster and Madam Clark said, some of the young folk was interviewed and asked, why are you doing this? They said, because we're bored. We have nothing to do. So it's good if we can have that anticipation, meetings for what's going to take place. Madam Clark, how do your office, and I know you've probably answered this, but I'm going to put it in another way. How do your office approach rehabilitation and second chances?
Well, you know, I'm somebody that believes in those second chances. Look, I don't do this work in a vacuum. You know, I have people in my family that have been arrested and gone to jail and prison. I have people in my family that have mental health issues. I have people in my family that have been accused of sexual crimes. I grew up in a home with an alcoholic father, so I know about addiction. So again, like I said, this is personal to me. Not everybody that goes through those things mean that they should go to jail or prison. So we need to do what we can to get them on the right track. Hold them accountable however we need to, but also give them that lift so they can be better. I don't believe that everybody should go to jail. I want to give somebody a job, you know, rather than send them to jail, prison. I'd rather see them get reconnected to school. I'd rather see them get the drug treatment that they need. I'd love to see everybody have a home of their own or apartment or something like that. So as I do this work, like I said, we look at the individual and see what the needs are. If there's a treatable need, we look through every case through that lens first. A treatable need lens first. Youth lens to see. Trauma. People have so many unaddressed traumas that cause, you know, the problem. So I believe in giving second chances. I've created, if there's not a community-based program out there that'll help people with second chances where I could, you know, refer them to, I've built them myself. Because as a judge, I knew there were a lot of times there was nothing I could do with somebody. It's like, we got to figure out something. So as a DA, I've created a number of programs that help, that are alternatives to incarceration or detention for younger people so that we could do better. I absolutely believe in that, and viewing every case through that lens first. So we start down here and we work our way up. In the old days, you start up here, the maximum punishment, and then work your way down. But once you're up there, nobody wants to come down. They never want to come down. So we start here, we build up, and we end up wherever we end up.
All right. My last question for both of you. I'll start with you first, Commissioner Foster. What message would you like to leave with our church about building a safer future together with NYPD?
I think I touched on it before, but I want to close with that, is that the clergy is majorly important to me. It's important to public safety. Any work that we can do together in NYPD with clergy around the city, I think it's very important, but not just for the community. It's also important for our men and women that do this job every day to have that connection with the churches, the community, the young people, and any type of partnerships that we can do together is going to help us in the long run. And whether it's a clergy council with a precinct, or just coming to roll calls, or let's just talk about the issues that are going on in the community. And I think that that's something that my team will be going out to the different churches. We already started meeting with different bishops and pastors and imams around the city, just making sure we're touching all neighborhoods in the city.
And I would just encourage pastors and leaders of the churches, find out who your COs and community affairs officers, invite them to come to your services. We have our community affairs officer from the 4-4 precinct. Just about every Sunday he's in our service. And one time he was getting touched by the Holy Ghost, so we had to make sure that we had protection in there. You know, we didn't want no guns going off. Madam Clark, last question. If churches can focus upon one or two key areas to make the greatest impact, what would you suggest?
Helping these young people. We gotta do it. And you know what? I know there's a generation gap everywhere there is, right? Churches have a lot of older adults in them, but you also have a lot of children. There's intergenerational things that we could do. And the place where that happens most often is right in houses of worship. Every single place you have those elders there that can share with those young people. And guess what? You elders can learn a lot from some of them young people. Because I know I learn stuff every day. I remember I used to be the youngest person I knew, but now I'm a lot older. But those young people got so many ideas and things. And you'd be surprised how much we could bridge that gap. For them to understand who their grandmother and their grandmother is and where they come from and what they're about, that they're not just trying to be strict with them, but that you're carrying their legacy. Like they stand on your shoulders. They should know that and appreciate that, right? And those young people need to understand their role in this because they're the future. I said, as I stand on the shoulders of so many people that I know, I'm trying to reach back and bring up a generation because we losing a generation to this violence every day. I see it. But sometimes, and Pastor knows this because I always ask him to pray for me, sometimes I feel like I'm not getting it done, that I'm letting down those ancestors or people whose shoulders I stand on because I can't get it done. But I can't get frustrated. I still gotta keep trying. And little by little, 1 kid, 2 kids, 10, it all starts adding up when we get to some. We may not save them all. And unfortunately, I feel like that. I don't want to have to prosecute these young people, and I try my best not to, but I will. Okay? And they need to understand that. And that's the reality of it, that they need to understand that there's consequences to the things that they do, to you and I and to their community. And the more that we could get them to understand it, and we got to meet them where they are. So that means we got to get on social media and do however you communicate with them. We got to use that. We can't say, I don't know nothing about it because I'm not that savvy, but I'm learning because I got to get to them however I can. So houses of worship, if there was one thing, you all got to help us save our children.
Can we give a hand clap for our Madam Bronx District Attorney Darcel Clark and our NYPD Deputy Commissioner Alden Foster? Thank you for sharing your time, your insight and perspective with us tonight. Tonight has shown us something important, that justice is not just a legal issue and public safety is not just a police concern. It's also a community and church issue and concern. We are strongest when the church, public servants, families, and neighborhoods all work together, for we are better together. At the end of the day, we all share the same goal: safe communities, hope for our young people, and neighborhoods where everyone can thrive. So as people of faith, we believe real change happens when institutions, community, and the faith-based community work together. And tonight's conversation is a meaningful step in that direction. Let's give them another hand clap. Thank you, Bishop, for this time tonight.